The events I'm about to write are either horrid and macabre or extremely fascinating, depending entirely upon your point of view. I give you the De-materializing Maggot story. It was a hot, sticky heat wave in August in Milwaukee. We used to have a goodly number of ballerinas in the Milwaukee Ballet Company work as servers and bartenders at Shakers. This was a means to augment the pittance they received as salaried performers, and their performance attitudes and lithe-toned bodies were great for my business at Shakers. One Tuesday night in the summer of 1998 or so, ballerina Carissa Stitch was working with me. It was a very good sales night for us, and as usual, the crowd was captivated by the vivacious and beautiful Carissa. I closed the kitchen down about midnight and sat at the east end of the front bar at the only open bar stool. I had lit up a lovely Davidoff 2000 cigar, and it was my custom, played the ash to its longest conclusion, and had a meaningful conversation with my Macallan Scotch. Having misjudged the ash structure, I dropped the ash upon the floor. To ensure it was not a viable ember, I watched it for a moment. The life was out of it, but I did notice a white object inching across the bar floor from the vicinity of the alley door. It was a maggot. I grabbed the bev nap from under my scotch and picked up the maggot, depositing it in the waste container behind the bar. As I came around, I saw 3 more maggots coming from under the door. I quickly dispatched the critters, opened the door, and saw a river of maggots. No, seriously, a moving, rhythmic wave of maggots moving from east to west, looking for all the world like a river. From my building, across the alleyway to the adjoining bar, nothing but maggots, fully 12 feet across, and as far east down towards one end of the alley and then west towards 2nd Street, as far as I could see, was a slithering mass of maggots, and all moving as one body, undulating east to west towards 2nd Street. Clearly, I had never seen nor heard of anything remotely like this in my life. I went down to the basement storage. I grabbed a case of bleach and walked out the front door, pouring out and emptying all 6 gallons upon my building's outer walls. This took me back towards the dumpster behind the restaurant, across the fire department, which was writhing with maggots, as was the fire department's cyclone fence to the north of and behind my building. I will never forget the ghastly, head-jarring stench of putrefaction which hung in the dank summer's humid air. If you have ever smelled a human body decomposing in advanced stages of funk, this was it. Nevertheless, I followed the maggots, slipping and sliding all the way to 1st Street, as if I were walking on a skating rink with leather soles. Now this is the odd part. There were no maggots on the sidewalk, neither on 1st Street nor on 2nd Street. Rather, they were all moving west from 1st Street in an ordered fashion, but they never crossed the threshold of the sidewalks, which ran perpendicular to the alley. I stood off for a moment, trying to rationalize what was taking place here, and I only became more befuddled by what I was seeing. Anyway, making my way back into the front door Shakers, I called Carissa over to the alley doorway to see the maggots, asking her not to scream at what I was to show her. She nodded her head. You know by now she screamed at what she saw. We then decided it was time to close. It's about 12:20. At this time in our history, we were customarily open until 2 a.m. every night as a vibrant late-night haunt. After hurrying clients out the door, whatever flimsy story we concocted, we were about to leave at 12:30 when 2 Milwaukee police officers entered from the side doorway. As we have long been regarded as a federal agent and general copper bar since inception in 1986, seeing the police at Shakers was no great surprise. A very good friend of mine, police officer Greg Duran, whom I had known for several years, was the FTO, the field training officer that night, with a brand new rookie and a brand new squad car. Duran came in looking concerned. Everything all right here? Why are you closing early? He asked, as he knew it was our custom to be open until the legal limit for closing time. Did you notice anything outside, Greg? I asked. Yeah, it stinks like a rotting dead body and there are maggots everywhere. Well, that's why we're closing, I respond. I explained that I didn't want my customers to see the maggots crawling around Shakers or to catch a whiff of the stench. Duran said he and his partner would investigate, and Carissa and I headed home. Considering that this entire story is ever so disbelievable, anyone who knew me back in 1988 would scoff at the next part. I'm back at 6 a.m., unheard of for me, but I could not sleep, and I'm worried about having to call the health department to report these maggots as a vector problem, which I clearly cannot control. To my surprise and relief, the alley was as clean as freshly poured cement. Not a blade of grass, a cigar butt litter, nothing, and most importantly, no maggots and no smell. I head home to catch some sleep and reflect upon the previous night's folly and return to work at my normal time of 4 p.m. Everything is normal inside as well. I didn't see Officer Duran that night, but did see Star, one of the original psychics who introduced me to Elizabeth, the little girl whose spirit is in our restroom several years earlier. I recounted the previous night's adventure to her and asked Star what she thought about the maggots. Without missing a beat, she replied that this was a good sign and was meant that negative energy was leaving the building. Once again, I had no logical explanation, so I deferred to her explanation. Carissa married a man she met at Shakers who now works for the U.S. State Department, and she and her family live abroad. Police Officer Greg Duran is now Chief of Police Duran in a neighboring metropolitan community. He'd be happy to regale you with this and other tales of his unexplainable phenomena he's experienced here at Shakers. One little side note, Greg talked about how they got a call that night, so he and his partner got back into their squad car and lights and siren light everything up. They're going to respond to this call, and their brand new squad car, as soon as it leaves the alleyway, hits Virginia Street, it seizes up in the middle of the road, completely unexplainable. So I hope that this has interested you to have your own experience at Shakers and come to see what takes place at Milwaukee's Haunted Bar. Cheers.